Wow, that's interesting. So you went totally the opposite direction that I was thinking, which is exactly why I have you on the show and not me, right? I love it.
But the thing that
I'm very serious. Like that's a big mistake. Okay, I would have made that mistake. What's up, everybody? Aviv here, CineSummit founder, and welcome to another episode of Next Level Filmmaker, the show where you send in your work to us. We take a look and tell you what you can do to take it to that next level. Brought to you, of course, by cinesummit.com. Make sure to head on over there, sign up for our next free event, and featuring the one and only Adam Patch, highly sought after, world-renowned commercial director. Let's check out a little bit of his work and jump straight in.
Me and my girls split the buffet at KFC. Dog, I was having nervous breakdowns like, man, these niggas that much better than me. Paid off, but I still feel possessed as a gun charge. So, I represent the first. Now let me end my verse right where the horns are like,
What's up, Adam? We got a cool one today. Are you ready for this? We got Andrea on board, my friend.
I'm ready. Let's watch it.
Okay, so Andrea has sent us something that's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be cool for most people to get a lot out of it because it's a very kind of corporate, everyday kind of a video that a lot of local kind of producers are making. I've done a lot of these myself, and I think most people are doing this kind of work, but they want to up their level to that Adam Patch kind of level stuff. So let's take a quick look at it, and then we'll jump in.
Okay, great.
I know you're applying to a lot of medical schools right now, and I'd like to tell you as much as I can about TCOM to try and help you make that decision.
One of the things that I wondered when applying to medical school was what's the difference between an MD and a DO school? If you're looking for a school that places an emphasis on patient care and evaluating the patient as a whole, then a DO school is for you.
There's also osteopathic manipulative medicine, which is another big difference.
When you're applying to medical school, you need to look for the one that has a trait that you're looking for. For me, those things were good personalities. Students here needed to be happy. I wanted to be happy. Strong academics and a very high residency match and board passing rate.
Our curriculum here is systems-based learning, meaning we split up the body into different sections and we learn everything about that section. So for example, when we're studying cardiology, we study everything about cardiology. That includes the anatomy, the physiology, the pharmacology, and the histology. So here at TCOM, we do 2 passes through each system. So in first year, you'll learn a lot about what is normal, and in second year, we'll go through everything that's abnormal. That focuses more on pathology, pharmacology, and treatment.
I wanted to be able to learn how I learned the best, whether it be in lecture halls or at the library, studying with friends or studying on my own.
So there's a lot of student-led organizations here at TCOM, and it doesn't matter what specialty you're interested in, you can get hands-on experience with pretty much any specialty.
A little bit about my interview day at TCOM. I could see that people were happy here. I could see the positive vibe. I could see that there's no competition between students. I could see the deep relationship between students and the faculty.
A couple years ago, when I participated in a bone marrow transplant, everybody here was really accommodating and helpful. They went out of their way to make sure that I had everything that I needed. It really felt like everybody here wanted me to be successful.
We're a very active student body, and when we're not studying or working in our student organizations, we're out having fun. The campus hosts a lot of activities that's available for everyone in the community, and it's available to you, friends, families, and sometimes we go to these events to just kind of wind down and take our minds off of studying.
4 years of medical school is definitely not a short time, and I wanted to live in a city where there are opportunities for me and my future. It's great to live in the city of Fort Worth because there are clinical opportunities and residencies.
The school is located in Fort Worth's Cultural District. So right next to us is the museum, and a few minutes away is the zoo, the botanical gardens, and the Trinity Trails. Fort Worth's a great city, and there's a little bit of something here for everyone.
Thanks so much for stopping by. I hope we see you on campus soon.
Okay, Adam, there it is. Interesting. I think we're going to have a lot of feedback. Andrea sent us some things to consider before we get into that, so I want to read that off.
Okay.
And let's see how we can help her out here. Okay.
Great.
So she's saying here, this is a video I created for my employer, UNT Health Science Center. It's a medical college. The person in charge was very displeased with this video. She says, I think a lot of it was the visuals I created, which I went back and re-edited like crazy, but I think it has to do with the story too. First of all, I just want to note real quick, I'm stopping. This is now Aviv talking. A lot of I thinks in there. I wonder if she needs some clarity there, right? She says, I think the visuals was it. I think the story. So she might want to get some clarity there.
Good point.
Moving along, she says, as a video producer, I've only ever worked for corporate employers or businesses. So being able to get better at telling the company mission is something that I need to work on and get better at ASAP, which is why I love, again, Aviv speaking here, which is why I love this piece, because I feel, Adam, this is like bread and butter for most people, right?
Yeah.
Telling the business, like just explaining it. So
yeah.
She goes on to say, I did not storyboard this video. I did pre-interview the participants and draft a rough script, more like a guideline for them to follow. This approach I found made it worse than having them wing it, as the students were so nervous about memorizing their lines instead of using the script as a guideline for the story. So that's our background.
Yeah.
That's where she's coming from.
It's really interesting. So this type of video is an interesting thing to critique because it's so specific to this school. And one of the things you mentioned was just like she kept mentioning I think, and like she's not really sure on the feedback, and to me that's really important. So it'd be great to, I mean, maybe it's not possible to get, but it'd be great to get better feedback from her employer who said that they didn't like it, and find out more about what they didn't like. For me, from an outsider, there are definitely some like filmmaking things that felt, low budget and all that, but like honestly, before I read that line that said my employer was very displeased, I was a little surprised. I thought, oh, cool. I mean, this is great for what it is. Like, I don't know anything about medical school. I don't know anything about who these people are or what they're actually saying, like the actual content of it. But I'm like, they made it seem like a cool place. It seems like, for the most part, the people seemed really interesting and like they felt pretty natural. There was one guy, some of the talent was a little stiffer than others, but like for the most part, I was like, okay, cool. I feel like this probably achieved what it did. So I'm really curious to hear what the employer's feedback was that they didn't like so much about it. But I think she had something in the end of that at her comment that really made sense, and something that I've run into before, which is the pre-interview thing. So the pre-interview thing can totally backfire sometimes, because then it's people who aren't used to being on camera, and now you lost any spontaneity and like authenticity that would come with it, and they're just like literally trying to memorize the script that you wrote for them, and now they're being an actor instead of being themselves. So again, I feel like this girl and this guy did a pretty good job. Like they seemed pretty natural, and I really liked the fact that they were speaking right to camera. They didn't feel super self-conscious, looking right into the lens, which I thought was nice. Some like this guy up at the beginning. This guy was definitely stiffer, and I felt he was like a robot reading the lines.
Well, let's take a step back real quick, Adam, and I want to ask you a quick question. The overall approach, or overall concept of having a bunch of students say, this is why I like it, this is why it's good, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, I found that a mistake that I'm making a lot is that I'm trying to make this really high-end stuff. Again, I call it the Adam Patch level, right? But I don't have the means for it, right? I don't have the means, I don't have the time, I don't have the experience. So I think she might have overshot her experience level and budget, of course. So in other words, having 7 different people or 10 different people, however many she had, and they all have to really be good in order for this to work, is probably too tough of a task for the scenario she's in. Maybe she would have been better off with 2 or 3. Maybe.
I mean, that said, maybe she did interview 3 other people, and 2 of them, 2 of them got cut because they were so bad, and this is the best of the best. So it could have been worse if she only picked a few people and then they bombed it, and then she didn't have any options. So, I like the scale of it. I think that it honestly, this is going exactly against what you just said, but I honestly feel like I would have rather seen even more people. It felt a little, just because it was like, from the story part of it and from them trying to sell the school, it felt a little bit like, okay, well, here's like 3 people who really like it. You know, like maybe they're just like student body president or whatever. And, you know, obviously they're going to say it's great. So if it was like a wider breadth of people and everyone's, you know, saying how great it is, and I really got this out of it, and just these little quick sound bites, even if it was just like man on the street style stuff, I feel like that could have gone, you know, could have helped kind of tell a bigger holistic story.
Right, and well, that's interesting. So you went totally the opposite direction that I was thinking, which is exactly why I have you on the show and not me, right? I love it.
But the thing that
I'm very serious. Like that's a big mistake. Okay, I would have made that mistake. Now, what I'm getting from you is that if you would have done it bigger, not everyone has to perfect now a good, you know, a chunk of time. You're looking for that one soundbite, which is probably easier to find than having a good, you know, moment.
Having a guy have to give a whole paragraph of text. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so wow.
And I should say the idea of going with a bigger scale is with this idea in mind that this level of video is acceptable, which I think it is. So this is, again, this is a strange thing, because it's like for the format of what it is, I feel like going in with a super overly produced video would be like I don't know, you know what I mean? I think there's something kind of nice about this feeling like students made this video, and, you know, like you're going to the school, you don't want it to feel like they spent $500,000 on a, you know, high-end production to like make their cool scenes
that's
cool.
An interesting comment. Okay, so you're saying the production value wise, not necessarily a bad thing, that it's you know, more on the lower end.
I'm saying it didn't bother me. If it was better, you know, if it was better, they shot on better cameras. The interviews could have been lit and more interesting. I love of everything in here. This was my favorite setup right here, when she's sitting in the lecture hall. It's like the only thing that feels like really nicely art directed, and they actually lit it. You know.
Interesting. And I thought you were going to tear that apart. This is 180 degrees. Thank God you're here, because I would have said the opposite. That one did catch me, but I was like, that glow behind her is so, like, you know, I don't know. It's like it's so.
I mean,
forced.
it's not. It is forced, but there's like, I don't know. There's something. Like, that's what I mean is in terms of like the production value. This is them trying to push it a little bit, right? Like this shot is like them trying to like give some more style and like elevate the level of it a little bit, and it didn't bother me. If there was more stuff like this, cool. But I also like, honestly, this setup of the same girl like sitting at that other table, like that was cool too. Like I think she seems great, and like the fact that she's sitting in the school and there's no other students around, that doesn't bother me. I think it's fine.
So interesting. I think maybe we should go through it real quick and try to like give some more in detail on what she did here. Okay. I want to say, first of all, I don't have enough. She didn't give us enough information on how many people were involved. But I have this feeling that she did most of everything. And I'm super impressed. This seems like she did a lot of work. A lot of people. She even had them like mid-sentence in a different location. I don't know if you caught that.
Agree.
Which I thought was pretty clever.
Yeah.
Not sure if it worked. I'd really like to hear your opinion on that. But in general, I love what you're saying is that not necessarily that she has to improve the production value, because then it feels like it's too overly produced and all that. I love that. The question is, what can she do from just a storytelling perspective or a style? I don't know. What is it here that can make it work better? Because you're giving her a big pass on the production level, which makes me excited that I don't have.
It doesn't always have to just look like a highly stylized, you know, expensive commercial. Okay, so let's see. Let's dive into that. So to me, the biggest thing, and I'm imagining the biggest part of her employer's negative feedback was about the specific story. So that's hard for me to comment on, again, because I don't know the details of, like, you know, maybe he's like, oh, they didn't focus enough on like the pre-med stuff, or, you know, like very, like in the weeds stuff about the messaging, which makes me think it was related to that, especially because of this idea of having a pre-interview and then going in with a drafted script. So I think I would imagine that's the part that they didn't love or felt like it was maybe lacking. So obviously we can't comment on that. Outside of that, a couple of things that I thought of along the way. One, like I mentioned, I did like the idea of maybe seeing more people, making it feel like a larger scale and feeling more of like an overall student body presence. I felt like this is a small thing, but I felt like it could really be helpful. simple like lower thirds on these people. Like I didn't understand who this guy was at the beginning. Maybe he said it and I missed it. He bookends the whole thing and then throws it off to everybody else, then just comes back at the end. And I was like, who is that guy? Why is he starting out this video? Again, no context. Maybe everybody who's going to the school knows who this guy is. You don't need to put a super on him, but it seems like that would be helpful. Adam,
before you continue too much, I want to make sure I understand something. This is, I understood it for the purpose of showing to potential students, or to get them to be interested in their school, right? Mm-hmm. They got lots of schools that they're interested in. Yeah. This is a video that they're making to make a potential student say, wow, this looks like the place for me to go.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think, overall did it do that? Did it accomplish that?
I think it did.
If you were a potential student,
I'm taking all of the actual stuff that you would like factor into going to school, but outside of all of that, I mean, it's like it's a cute, charming video, and it's like, everybody, they sell it. It seems like it's a cool program. People seem happy with it. It seems like there's, it's a cool place to live. It doesn't feel super forced, besides that one guy who kind of feels super forced. So to me, again, without reading her comment, I would have been like, cool, this seems like a successful video. You could probably up your production level a little bit if you wanted to make it look more polished, but like, it seemed like it probably did what it sought out to do, knowing no other context.
Yeah. I was actually quite shocked, like you said in the beginning, that the employer was unhappy with it. It's actually quite frustrating me to hear that. I mean, I can just imagine her killing herself over
I know,
this.
It seems like I'm sure she did a ton of work.
Yeah, and all by herself too, right? Like, right. And I think she told me somewhere in here, I have to look at the notes again. I think the budget was no budget. At least it didn't tell me the budget. Okay. Anyways, okay. So I'm gonna let you go on. Yeah.
Okay. So lower thirds I think would help, and again, not just their names, but like it's important to know who they are and like what year student they are, whatever, like anything like that would be helpful. Maybe it might be cool to say like where they came from, what hometown they were from, or something. Yeah, okay. Getting into like the B-roll, the B-roll was okay. It was a little clunky. There's like some weird, obviously some like the camera moves are a little weird. This shot has just like this weird, like obviously have some kind of gimbal system going on, but it's like all shaky and just kind of strange. A lot of the inserts just felt like, I feel like that could be elevated a little bit. Some of the compositions on these shots are just like straight. Like this just feels weird to me that she's like so cropped. It's like, the focus on this shot is like on her elbow instead of like either picking that it's her face or it's what's happening. So like some of the compositions in the B-roll was a little bugging me. Like similar thing happening, here again, just like a push into a white wall. Basically, what's the point of that? This shot, like, just, I was like, we really need to see her half-eaten, like, croissant on the table, just like, just little stuff like.
Well, I want to ask you from a production standpoint, because you're so involved in all the logistics. She's doing this alone, thousands of scenes, hundreds of scenes, hundreds of locations and places and items. How should she have went about it so that she can get good B-roll? It just seems like too much for one person.
I mean,
should she have strategized better? Should she, structured the type of shooting? I mean,
yeah, maybe depending on how she went in, planning it. Like if she was like, okay, I need specifically. Again, I feel like the content is probably okay. What she's showing is right. I'm just getting into the nitty gritty on like the actual compositions and how it's being shot. So in a way, I don't know if she actually shot this like herself, or she hired she worked with a DP, but just somebody who was more experienced would shoot it a little bit differently, and it could just like the exact same thing, the exact same angles, or the same room, same lighting, everything, just the camera moves and like the compositions could make it feel more professional.
So even run and gun, you're saying it could have upped the level without changing too much, just more experience on the cinematography.
Yeah, I think the lack of experience just kind of comes through in the whole production, but I mean specifically the B-roll. I like that, like the interviews again probably could have been staged a little more interestingly, or like art director cleaned up a little bit. There could be some more specific lighting in here. But yeah, like the B-roll shots, I think that's maybe a place that it could.
Okay, so this is interesting, because what you're saying is that really if she had just a higher level B-roll, this whole thing would have been another level.
And to go back to her comment in her note, which was basically, I think a lot of it was the visuals I created, which I went back and re-edited like crazy. So maybe there was some inkling from her employer that the visuals were lacking, and maybe that is maybe the employer is speaking to the production level of the B-roll or of the interviews. It's hard to say. Yeah.
I think that I want to go into. She asked some very specific questions, which I want to get to.
Okay.
Let's do that. And I think actually she's really. This is what I like about Andrea. She's serious.
Yeah.
You know, she's asking some real specific questions because she wants to move up to the next level. So I'm very excited for her. She says here, how do you plan for a video story? What are your pre-production steps? Let's start with that, and then we'll go on to
okay.
And how long do they take you? Well, she has a few more, but let's.
Good question. I should caveat, first of all, this is not my specialty. I don't do a lot of doc-based stuff. Honestly, Aviv, you could probably answer this more than me. When I plan for the story, if I was planning for something like this, I would have the bullet. Like I probably wouldn't do pre-interviews. I would go in with like the idea of the arc that we're trying to tell. Like we're gonna do the first 2 minutes of video is like setting up the pre-med program, and then we're going to talk about the coursework, and then we're going to talk about the city of Fort Worth or whatever. Like these are the sections that the chapters of video is going to be broken into. Then I'd go into the interview, get the interviews as authentically and like naturally as I could, and then go back and try to slot it into the script and not go in with this pre-scripted thing. So that's one thing that is different, which sounds like Andrea already realized her mistake in doing those pre-interviews with non-actors.
But that's already a big point that you're saying. I think your experience is so freaking high that you're forgetting some of the steps that we don't necessarily know. So you're saying even on a doc style arc of a story. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same as any arc of a story. You want to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and this is achieving that for sure. But I think having that scripted out and scripted out is different than a normal commercial where it's actually scripted and everything's verbatim. And it sounds like that was the problem here, was like having it maybe too scripted at times, going in and being and kind of just going in and getting the buckets of of what we want to talk about in this video. And to me, those would be the pre-production steps. Obviously, figuring out who the people we're going to interview, and then coming up with places to interview them. Again, like I feel like the places that they were interviewed were maybe not necessarily the best choices. They felt a little bit like, okay, yeah, we're in this area, we can use this empty room and shoot it real quick. So, in the pre-production steps, I maybe would have spent a little bit more time like lining up those things.
The biggest question I have on this piece is that it's following the standard interviews, B-roll. That's it. That's like 90% of this kind of work.
Yeah.
I probably see zero of that in your work.
Right.
And that's really what I'm trying to figure out here. If you were asked to do this job and it was, the same means, run and gun, you're in the beginning of your, I'm not sure you would have done interviews B-roll. I'm thinking you would have come. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So is there on that creative end, do people need to broaden their horizon? That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I'm getting hired for a job is let's escape this interview B-roll thing. If you want, you know what I mean? Let's come up with a real creative.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. A lot of time I think clients, I'm sure they asked for, whoever hired her to do this asked her to do that. But to your point,
that's all they know.
It's your job. Yeah, that's all they know. That's what they think they want. And it's your job to push back a little bit. I think that's a great point of view. I mean, I feel like going in and being like, okay, cool. That's how we always do it. Let's twist it a little bit and come up with more of a conceptual idea. Again, the scary part with that is like if you don't have the money to do that properly, like this sort of thing is supposed to feel authentic, and it's just people, it's just current students talking about their experience. So it's like, again, like you kind of get a pass on that stuff. If this was like, okay, we opened on this girl, she's walking through campus in slow motion, and you hear her voiceover talking about, how she's always dreamt of this moment or whatever. Like that's like now we're talking like a budget. You got to nail that shit to make it right. You know what I mean? So, in a way, I agree with you. Cool, push it. Like, let's do something different within your limitations.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So you're saying you got to nail that bleep to get it right when it comes to the conceptualized stuff, because you're now getting into something that feels cinematic and all this kind of stuff. Like, well, where's the production value? If it's got to go together. Okay, blew my mind with that. Okay, I understand now. So okay. That's a cool point. Okay, let's go on with her questions.
Okay.
So planning for a video story, I think you pretty much already said it, which is like, okay, what's the arc? What are you trying to achieve in the beginning part, middle part, and end part?
It seems like she probably got this part. The only step she messed up on was doing the pre-interview, in my opinion.
Okay. She did ask an interesting part. How long does that take you? I've been told that I take too long on this step. My first question is, who's telling you that? Do they have any experience? You know,
right? Exactly. That seems arbitrary. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't do enough of this type of stuff to know what like the ratio is of how much you're shooting to how much you're going to put in the thing. But I mean, the interview, you're going to talk to them for like an hour probably, and you're going to get, So,
okay.
Yeah.
So,
and also in interview type of settings, this is maybe going to their next question. How do you get a good interview from somebody? When you're going into this thing, it's not just a regular conversation. You're re-asking them stuff over and over again. You're asking them if they say something that was like close, but they didn't phrase it the right way because it's not hitting the right. You got to kind of come at them again with the question. This is a whole art form of like getting good interviews, which again, not my specialty, but I've done it a few times, and like it's such a weird thing because it's not just like it's supposed to feel like a conversation. You're sitting down talking to this person, but ultimately you're like continually asking them and trying to pull out the little pieces of very specific things you want them to say, but to come off of their head in a very normal, natural, authentic way.
Got it. So obviously you would avoid we have already established that, avoid the pre-interview, and really listen to the answers. If you don't think they nailed it, you gotta just come at it again somehow. Yeah. I've noticed. I've been with a few directors where I've seen them and a few people that are really great in interviews, and I think the biggest mistake people make is they start off like it's all business. It's just questions. Okay, they just go right into the questions, and the person is just like frozen. Yeah. I think if you can establish some rapport in the beginning, and you're just vibing and flowing and talking about their day and what you have for breakfast. I mean, really just be a personable kind of a guy person. Totally. And then you kind of roll. Oh yeah, so so why'd you even come to the school? You know what I mean? Or what? Then get into it. Yeah. So you relax them.
And I think now that you brought that up, I think that's a good point of maybe an area that this video could have improved a little bit. It did, like, again, with the pre-interview is one thing, yes, but it also, even the people who felt natural, they felt like they were naturally reading a script still. Like, it wasn't like totally off the top of their head. It didn't feel super personal, like it didn't feel anecdotal or like anything related to them specifically. It felt like they were speaking on behalf of the school. So it might have been interesting to get some more like, off the cuff, like, conversational type of stuff like you're saying.
Yeah. So she asked a few more questions about the interviews, which you may or may not have some thoughts on that. How long does the average interview take you? How do you get a good story out of the interviewee when you're not able to pre-screen them and they are not trained actors? How do you approach the edit? Oh, the edit, that's a whole nother question. But
I think we
average
talked about
interview.
That, I don't know. Yeah. I
would say average interview. I've noticed on my things. Look, it depends on how many characters, right? If there's like one main character, then you probably want to sit there with them for a good 30 minutes. Yeah.
If you're going to go interview 50 people on the quad at the school, then it's like, the interview could take 4 minutes and you're just hoping to get, a 3-second soundbite. Doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I think, but for what she did here, which was about 10 people, I would say she doesn't need to be more than 10 to 20 minutes with each one. That's it. That's and it's just all a matter of getting them relaxed.
I would say more than that. I would say more. If I was interviewing this guy, I would have definitely shot. I would have shot at least 30 minutes.
Interesting. Okay, so see, Adam says 30 minutes. There you go. How do you get a good story out of the interviewee when you're not able to pre-screen them? Any thoughts on that? I think we kind of covered it.
Yeah. I think pre-screening and pre-interviewing is different. Okay, so what happened, I think the misstep here wasn't just the pre-interview. It was the pre-interview, writing a script, coming back to them, this is the thing we want you to say. A pre-interview is good ahead of time just for you to understand, their story and understand what you want to get out of them, so that when you come back to it, you can ask different questions or change your approach or whatever. So that the pre-interview is a good thing, and it's just for you. So in the past when I've done it, a lot of times I'll just do a pre-interview on a phone call, like just so we can talk and we can set up some sort of rapport and that, you know, we're comfortable having a conversation and that sort of thing. So that the first time we're meeting isn't when they're sitting in front of me staring into a lens.
Okay, that's awesome. Wow, that's a big one. Yeah. Just the conversation to it's like you said, it's not the first time you've seen them, and then they're already relaxed. Oh, hey, what's up? Nice to finally meet you and whatnot. You know, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So, because I've noticed that a lot. I'm thrown into the fire. I don't know anything. I meet these people for the first time, and then you really have to, like you said, I think you nailed it, building the rapport. You got to build that rapport in a few minutes, and then you got the next person coming in 30 minutes or whatever it is. And it's hard.
Another little trick that I use sometimes, or that I think is helpful, is to not. I do this not just with interviews, anybody who's a non-actor, is like, don't make it a specific, like, hey, what's up? We're talking blah, blah, blah. Okay, roll cameras and now focus on you. You make it feel more like before that person even sits down, you're rolling the camera, everything's set, you're just having a conversation, they sit down, you continue that conversation. It shouldn't feel like this energy shift in the room when, like, okay, we're switching into, like, now you got to nail your lines, like the lights are on you sort of thing. Right.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Big one. Don't stop the whole world. Okay, we're action. Okay, recording. Everybody quiet. That's it. They're done.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You know, even us who know about the stuff, when we've been on the other side of the camera, the minute that happens, we're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely have them roll when you're already doing like the kind of rapport stuff, and then just go right into it. I've even get it to the point where they're in the middle of an answer. Like, we've gotten into it, they're like, have we started yet? Are we recording? I'm like, just that's my goal. That they wonder if we even started.
There. And I will say, I mentioned that a couple of the people in the video did a pretty good job of, like, you know, doing the look into the lens thing and, like, making it work. But that's that's hard. You know, that's hard to do. And I'm imagining there's a technique called Interatron, which is like an interview technique, which Errol Morris invented, which is basically like, there's a teleprompter with your face on it when you're having a conversation. So, like, in this frame here of this video, this guy's not just looking at a lens, he's looking at a video of me talking, or we're having a conversation. So we can get that, like, natural human interaction and doesn't have to be talking to a lens. I'm gonna say 100% they didn't have that on this. So that's hard. You feel so self-conscious looking in the lens. So I might have suggested switching your eye line, feeling more conversational, having it be an off-camera interview, could have shifted the whole energy. And, you know, her question is one of the critiques I often get is the execution of my interviews is a little lacking. This could be it, because this is a really hard technique to nail. And again, it makes it feel a little bit scripted, because, like, what are the odds that somebody's just going to look right into the lens and just say something totally off the cuff and authentic? It feels they're breaking the fourth wall. So.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. That went right over my head this whole time we were talking, that they're looking into the lens the whole time. And what Adam is talking about, I'm just going to kind of clarify just for a second, because I'm familiar with this. It's basically like a teleprompter. I'm not sure if you use that word, but it's like a teleprompter, but instead of text there, it's actually your video. You're off to the side. There's a camera on you, and that's projecting it onto the teleprompter, which is right in front of the lens. So now they're looking at you, so they feel like they're talking to somebody and not staring down the barrel of a lens like I and Adam are doing right now.
Right.
Okay. So Andrea, that's gonna cut it for now. Adam, awesome stuff. I think she's got a lot of information.
Yeah, Andrea, I think you did a really good job, Andrea. I mean, like, again, out of context, I feel like this is you did a good job selling this school from my outside opinion. I think it'd be great to get. I think you should go back to your employer, ask more specifically what are the things they didn't like, so you can know what to improve on next time, and try to understand what that next level up to get to is.
Awesome. And I would also just add that I think she's got the right attitude.
Totally.
She's got the right attitude.
Asking the right questions.
She's pushing the levels, the level of what she's doing, and she's asking a ton of questions like she did to us. So she's on the way.
Yep.
All right. With that, we're going to conclude. Adam, thank you so much. Rock and roll. That was awesome, man.
Thanks, man.
So I hope you liked that. Make sure to check out every single episode. Subscribe. Hit the bell button so you don't miss any one of them. And I'll see you on the next episode. Make sure to be signed up for CineSummit.com. I'll see you on those events as well. Take it easy.